Pastor Maurice Hartwick, aka the street preacher, aka the street sweeper, aka my brother and sister's keeper. I'm well known by that through the city because I actually care about our people. I am the founding pastor of Power Ministry and the founding leader of the LIP movement, which is the Living Peace movement here in Detroit. The Living Peace movement was based upon our people resting in peace way too fast, way too soon. We think you should live in peace, and we come to teach them, model that, and fight the evils that put them into dangerous positions to die way too soon. We go into schools, we in the streets, we in the hard places, dealing with the hard facts, the hard issues of people that put a threat to our youth, our most valuable asset. I'm here in Detroit. We come to change that narrative and demonstrate power and make sure our kids are safe. Number one goal.
What up, though? My name is Alia Harvey-Quinn. I'm the founder and director of Force Detroit. Our goal is to change the landscape of Detroit. We hope to build a Detroit that is less violent and more safe for our people. The issues that we work on are violence reduction, anti-criminalization, and criminal justice reform. We do that by organizing with young people, organizing with directly impacted leaders, and organizing narratives, good stories.
As a native Detroiter, growing up here in Detroit all my life, from the east side of Detroit, father was murdered at the age of 3. I was a victim of violence as a child. I was this child that had to hide because there was a hit on my life from the fear of retaliation of a young man growing up to kill the one who killed my father. And seeing Detroit just dive down from the crack epidemic, I fell into that culture in the criminalization life and ended up in prison about to lose my life on a 30-year indictment. And it was God that brought me out of there. I came out and I learned about how to be a man. And I learned that it was hard to be a man when you have never seen a man or seen the father. And I began to open my heart up to young people. It brought me right to activism.
I think I started this work in my heart in around 2000, I say 10. Back when I was doing youth work at a local community center, I was facilitating a poetry workshop. I used to try to contain the subject matter of the poetry workshop so that the poetry or raps, as the young people were trying to develop, didn't become about like violence or sexuality. And so I would give subjects. And this particular day, the subject was, what are we afraid of? And the framing was, we know that the world is afraid of us. They're afraid of, it's obvious because of how we're portrayed in the media, but what do we fear? Because everybody fears something. And I had a good relationship with the young people, and so they were more honest with me than usual. And a lot of people said a lot of different things, right? Some people said, I'm afraid of, different things. This one young man said, I'm afraid of who I've become when I have to rob people to help my mama pay the bills. And then as I unpacked his story more and more, his mom worked at McDonald's, and he was the eldest child of 4, siblings. He felt like he was the man of the household. And as a poet, I felt very, very inadequate in that moment. Like, all I have to give this young man are these hot similes and these quick metaphors, and this man needs so much more. And ultimately, the program became an entrepreneurial and employment program, but that wasn't really enough to help his household, right? And that didn't stop all of the structural problems that were in place. That began my journey towards organizing. At some point when you do nonprofit work for a really long time, you either feel convicted that you have to really do something, or you're a part of this broken system that is ultimately hurting our community.
As a youth minister and pastor, I was invited out to meetings with a group of clergy and city leaders, top end officials and top end people be in this meeting. And what amazed me was that they all had topics and issues and agendas. And the one agenda that nobody wanted to touch, that I came in the meeting to talk about, was violence and safety. With big people who were funded and had all kind of things going on with youth and kids and families, but it had nothing to do with safety. And each time I went into a meeting like this, I was the only one in the room, primarily talking about that issue. When I raised it up, it was like muted down. Okay, yeah, we get you, we get that, Pastor Mo. And I asked the question: how can you guys be sitting here talking about grabbing up folks' children out of a school district and putting them somewhere when you ain't even addressing how they gonna get to school safe, or they even gonna make it to school? And we got to deal with that first. And the room got silent, and it stayed silent. That issue was never addressed. There's no youth development fund, but yet and still they're asking for children to come out and be a good product. It's like asking them for a pound cake without realizing there needs to be an ingredient. You need a pound of butter, a pound of sugar, a pound of flour. You have no ingredient to this cake, but you want kids to go through their blue door and get the numbers up to do city business, to make sure we can do land-based things for the high numbers, but we're not investing into those kids. In terms of investing, when you talk about violence and safety, it's talked about in terms of what they invested in. Lock them up, get new prison facilities, arrest and frisk, search and procedure, metal detectors. Those are things that's addressed because they invest in those things. But the youth and the real issues that they face that causes them to be violent or pushes them in things that behave in that nature, which I have fell into, they're never addressed. I see a lot of cough syrup ministry going on that deals with the symptoms of the sniffles, and next day to be the runny nose, and next day to be the coughing. But we've never given the antidote to deal with the real bug. That's what led me into these spaces and to Live Free Detroit, and with Sister Alia to work on primarily targeting real issues of safety and violence and poverty and the things that shape up those things. Why are people so violent? I hosted a meeting about violence, and Leah hosted that with me, and we ran a survey out of that meeting about the effects of violence and how people are affected from this violence and what they think the causes are. From the people who are impacted and who are dealing with it. Not some reporter, not some person a lobbyist, not some person sitting back just talking about it and writing about it or analyzing it from an educational standpoint, but the folks who have laid their folks to rest, who have walked out to a cemetery, put their child in the ground, in a cold ground, and had to walk away. That person is who I want to hear from. And we analyze that.